Yes, I now call on Councillor Mrs Hampton to formally move and Councillor Govinda to second the motion on the vision for a stronger and better Wandsworth. Mrs Hampton. Thank you.
Opposed?
Councillor Hampton, would you be good enough to speak again in a maiden speech?
I made the speech. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and I have some thanks of my own. As many councillors here will know, this is my third go at trying to get elected. And here I am, and I would like to thank St Mary's Park and the residents, who are actually my neighbours, because it's actually where I live and work. So I actually feel passionate about my area because it's my community. I've seen so many changes. I remember when Morgan Crucible was still there. They didn't even have Morgan's Walk. I even remember the brewery, which I know does slightly date me, but there we go. I have seen and watched the development of a tired and run-down industrial site to the fantastic and lively place that it is today. My husband and I endlessly walk down that vista, and we see what the Conservatives in Wandsworth have done. They have created a fantastic space through thoughtful, very thoughtful planning applications. And we've done that in balance with our developers. In this area, we do have a bit of a supply and demand problem, but people want to come to Wandsworth because it's such a fantastic place to live. But our ethos here is not about the few, but about the many. And that is why, in 2003, the Hidden Homes agenda, the innovation by this council, was such an enormous success. A huge success, Councillor Daly, so don't chortle at me, please. We also have seen regeneration in terms of 9 Elms. And yes, we did not have 30% affordable housing. We only had 15%. But my goodness, we've got a tube line. How fantastic is that? We're now moving on to rented properties in the private sector to help not the few, but the many. So this council is really doing its bit. But as I said, affordable housing is not something that is easy, which is why I support affordable housing. In my own patch, in Battersea Reach, Councillor Strickland and I went to see the developers. 138 social housing, affordable housing units over the next 4 years. How fantastic is that? That is fantastic. Now, in February, in Dimson Lodge, Councillor Osborne said that 30% affordable housing simply wasn't enough. He wanted more. He didn't quite state how much more he wanted, but he didn't want 30%. I would remind Councillor Osborne the economies of profit. Those developers are not social entities. They are profit makers. So the developer has to make some money, otherwise he's not going to build his houses. The statistics show themselves. 2011 to 2012, Wandsworth approved 1,045 social housing applications. What did Labour Lambeth do? 197. That is fact. It is indisputable. So we need to be very careful about that balance. Across the river, we have the uncertainty, the chaos of a new Labour administration, causing chaos to planners who will not deliver the social housing. So what I say is that we should carry on doing what we do so admirably well, because isn't it better to have those houses to allow the developers to make their problems to profit, rather than to sit and pontificate and to have so little? I commend the motion.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Fellow councillors, I am also really delighted to be here and would like to say publicly a thank you to all those people who voted for me in Bedford Ward, that wonderful area around Tooting Common, which is named after Bedford Hill. If you don't know where Bedford is, many people don't, even when we live in Bedford, as I do. It also is my community, it's where I live. And I'm looking forward to serving the people of Bedford Ward and of Wandsworth, and working together with Councillor Alan Khan and with Councillor Dunn. I'm also really pleased to have been part of an all-women team of candidates in Bedford, and now one of the 10 Labour women councillors, which now has a majority of women in the Labour group, and also one of the 24 women councillors across the council, which I think, looking back, is the largest total number of Wandsworth women councillors ever. And it's well on the way to the 50% we need to be a representative group of the men and women of this borough. Of course, where Wandsworth Labour Party leads, others follow, and I'm delighted that the increase in women here has been followed by a vote for women bishops by the Church of England, and the coalition cabinet slightly increasing the number of women in yesterday's reshuffle. But I'm not saying that we as women are good councillors because we're women, not at all. But I do think that we can represent women better, we can involve women more, we can notice the impact of our decisions in different ways. It's about both the way we behave and the decisions we make. And I hope that I can learn from those women already here, and men, and we can work together to look at ways in which we might be doing things differently in the future. This should result in the council being a better representation for all men and women across the borough. We need to be looking out for the ways we can make those changes, though. By just surely having more women in the room, that's not going to be enough. I stood to be a councillor because of frustration I felt about Wandsworth seeming to be more and more a borough for the rich, out of touch with me and my family. Where would my family live in the future? I want them to live, potentially, if they want to, near me. But I felt that the lack of social housing, despite more and more building going on, the council not supporting communities when 1 o'clock clubs were being closed, and being slow to protect the wheat sheaf, although I'm really delighted about the decision of this evening, seemed to me, over the last few years, something that spurred me on to standing. So, when I got the council papers, I was really interested to read that there was a Conservative motion on a vision for a stronger and better Wandsworth. I like an inspiring vision. Who doesn't? It's an important leadership, communication, evaluation tool. But I was really disappointed to read the content of this motion. Is this it? Is this the vision for the next 4 years? Of course, it sounds very good. Investment in housing, transport, schools, green spaces, support for vulnerable people. What's not to like? But how much? Where is this going to happen? What's the plan? What are the overall aims in which you are aiming to go for? What's your vision? How will we know in 2 years' time if you're on track to achieving that vision? Sounding good is not good enough. I like the aim that the leader mentioned earlier of having every school in Wandsworth being an excellent school. Of course, that's a fantastic aim. Those kind of aims should be in the vision, that we could all see how we're working together towards achieving them. The motion also seems to claim that we've just lived through a glorious period of economic growth. It's quite out of touch on that point. We did actually return to recession in 2012. And what is worse for families in Wandsworth is that we've had 8 long years of recession or slow growth, what Councillor Ellis called earlier a severe recession. Family budgets have actually been stripped bare over time. There's no cushion there for troubled times. And we see some of the impacts of that in the increase in the use of food banks and in homelessness. These just demonstrate a much bigger problem across the borough. In Wandsworth, we are so fortunate. We have the opportunity to use our sound finances and innovative approaches to be a world-beating borough in tackling social inequalities. That's the kind of vision that I would support, no matter who would put it out. And we could lead the way for other councils in having both a famously low council tax and ambitious in really achieving social change. So I urge the council to reject the motion as a poor vision, complacent and out of touch, and to demand instead a much better vision for all the residents of Wandsworth. Thank you.
Councillor Sweet.
Mr Mayor, I travelled to the Town Hall this evening by Boris bike. This Conservative Council's creative approach to transport infrastructure is transforming the quality of life for people in the borough. I'm pleased to be here tonight representing the residents of Fairfield, a ward that continues to benefit from this Conservative Council's new ideas, not only on planes, trains and automobiles, but also on bikes, boats and the underground. The Council's Travel Choices campaign is a fresh approach that is changing the borough for the better. This Conservative Council has been truly innovative in thinking of transport, not merely in terms of costs and straightforward benefits, but instead as a tool with which to achieve wholesale transformation. This Conservative group's bold thinking on 9 Elms is quickly becoming the quintessential national example of transport kick-starting regeneration. The Northern Line and Bridge from Pimlico are opening up new parts of the borough to residents and businesses. You see, transport does not just make journeys shorter, it has a much wider impact. Numerous studies have shown that agglomeration around transport improves welfare, it increases productivity for businesses, it improves labour supply, and it makes it easier for people to work. That means more, better paid jobs. And that's why the Labour group's opposition to the Northern Line and constant objections to SIL and Section 106 in 9 Elms completely missed the point and let down our borough's residents. On bikes,
A little courtesy, Councillor Belton, please. It is a maiden speech.
Seriously, Mr Mayor, maiden speech is all very well, but when you make a completely unjustified assertion...
On what basis are you standing up? Please sit down.
I'm on the basis that he's just said something that's completely false.
Well, too bad. Please sit down.
I sit on the Planning Committee with Councillor Belton. I've been there when you've objected to Section 106. I'm going to continue with my speech. On bikes, I welcome the Council's work with the Mayor of London to bring Boris bikes to Wandsworth Town, Battersea and Putney. I look forward to the Council's plans to improve cycling infrastructure for the thousands of Wandsworth residents that use 2 wheels to get around. On boats, the Putney to Blackfriars Riverbus route has seen passenger numbers more than double since it reopened. We look forward to new piers to take advantage of this natural thoroughfare. On planes and trains, I welcome the Department for Transport's plan to publish a study into rail links between Heathrow and southern England, building on this Council's own feasibility study. Clapham Junction could one day be the only hub in the country within 30 minutes of both Gatwick and Heathrow. Once again, the benefits of transport are not merely to local residents, but to local businesses too. And that's why it's time to work hard to make Crossrail 2 a reality. The plan to connect Clapham Junction to the underground network would truly transform life for residents and bring new investment to Wandsworth. I recognise that transport is a subject that the Council cannot tackle in isolation. This Conservative group's good relations with TfL and other groups is paying dividends. In my own ward, the train companies have responded to the Council's lobbying for longer trains at Wandsworth Town. And on automobiles, as a Fairfield councillor, I'm delighted with this Conservative group's clever use of the Ram Brewery development to sort out the Wandsworth one-way system. The Council's work with property developers to incorporate transport into planning consents is most welcome. In sum, I urge you all aboard the Council's transport plans as we continue this journey to greater prosperity in the borough.
Councillor MacDonald.
Mr Mayor, and may I say it's always nice to meet a fellow Scot who lives in London.
A very warm welcome.
Thank you. Having lived in Wandsworth most of my working life, I now consider myself pretty much, first and foremost, to be a Londoner, which is why I was exceptionally proud to stand for and be elected in Graveney, which is my home. And there's nothing I would like more, actually, than to see a stronger, better Graveney at the heart of a stronger and better Wandsworth. the subject of the motion before us. On the face of it, who could oppose this? However, the devil is always in the detail, and as we've heard from Councillor Anderson tonight, there is very little detail here. So instead, I'd like to look at the evidence. What is life really like for people, for all of the people who live in Wandsworth? Firstly, if you look at the suggestion that there's been a continuous improvement in the quality of life for people in Wandsworth, how can that be the case when the Council's own joint strategic needs assessments for 2014 find that health inequalities in Wandsworth are amongst the worst in London? For example, excess winter deaths among the elderly are at the highest in London. And perhaps that's why there's actually no mention of health in this motion, even though health is something which, under the Coalition's recent changes, local authorities have more influence over. Secondly, let's look at the promise of housing options targeted to meet local demand, and then compare this to the stark reality of what we've heard here tonight from Councillor Hogg, who says that we are facing a homeless crisis. And we have the second highest council rents in the country. Homes here are being sold under the right to buy scheme, and they are not being replaced in nearly the same rate, the same numbers. And while I welcome the 4 new council properties that are being built in Graveney, it's simply not enough. And that's probably why residents in Graveney are amongst the worst being affected by the benefits cap, because we have council rents that are too high and we don't have enough council properties. And finally, I'd like to look at the commitment to invest in green spaces that's being made in this motion. And I'd like to take this opportunity to point out to people who don't know this, there are no communal green spaces in Graveney, the ward that I represent. However, perhaps this commitment in this motion tonight might mean that the Council will look at not allowing the bowling club, which is behind the Tooting Constitutional Club, currently up for sale, to just be developed. They might in fact look at investing in this and making it a communal green space for the people of Graveney. Because the fact is that children living in Graveney don't have outdoor space in the ward. And we frequently hear from parents on this issue, and during the election campaign this issue came up again and again. Instead, parents have to push their buggies or take their children all the way up to Tootingbeck Common, or they have to go across the Merton border to find somewhere where their children can play. And quite frankly, that in no way supports this motion's claim that the Conservative administration is generating prosperity and quality of life. So I oppose this motion because behind the rhetoric, the evidence here shows that consecutive Conservative administrations have actually failed to deliver better health and better housing for the people, all of the people in Wandsworth. And for me personally, and frustratingly, we still don't have a green space in Graveney. Thank you.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too would like to thank the people of West Putney for electing me here, and I thoroughly look forward to working with Councillor Jane Cooper and Councillor Sutters in the years ahead. I too am a resident in my own ward, and so it is my community, and I thoroughly look forward to representing their views. I moved to Wandsworth because of this vision that we have set out here. I think Councillor Anderson's comments are very useful, and I very much look forward to her bringing forward any ideas she may have, but I think she misses the point of what a vision is supposed to be. It is not necessarily supposed to be full of detail and targets and requirements. It is a vision. It is an idea. It's not necessarily something that you can measure. I moved to Wandsworth because of the issues stated in here, as I pointed out, because over the years this council has delivered good quality local services at value for money for its residents. It is for the same reasons that I wanted to become involved in local politics, and duly why I find myself here standing today, that I can be a small part of assisting in delivering this vision over the next 4 years. Councillor Sweet has already stated about infrastructure developments and movements forward with Wandsworth Council, working with the Mayor of London and with the coalition government, that will transform this borough fundamentally. We thoroughly look forward to these, and of course this has brought in large amount of private sector investment, something which has delivered the Northern Line extension, a great achievement, of private investment and something that hasn't had to rely on taxpayer funding. Wandsworth has a long history of developing innovative changes to the challenges that have faced local government over the year. As Councillor Anderson has stated, she may hopefully bring some of that innovation as well. I very much look forward to it myself. We know that the next 4 years will be a great challenge. However, I also think that it provides us with great opportunities. It provides us with the opportunities to use this innovative spirit that has been developed in this council to look at new ways of the challenges we face today. Hopefully, this will give us the opportunity to once again be a beacon to the local government across the United Kingdom, as we have been in the past. Over the last 36 years, Wandsworth Council, as I have pointed out, has provided good local services to its residents while maintaining a very low council tax. I know from people I spoke to in West Putney and in other wards throughout the campaign that this is a very important thing for them, a very important part of why they live here, why they continue to live here, and indeed, as has been stated, why they want their children to live here. This has been borne out by the public's support for this administration, delivering its 10th consecutive election victory for us, so that we may continue the vision that, as I say, has been set out here. Despite the challenges that I have already mentioned, which I agree will affect all local authorities, the economic climate in the UK is much stronger now than it has been in many a year. We have the strongest economic growth in the Western world, and here in London, we are undoubtedly the economic powerhouse of the UK. This all provides us with great advantages. The development in Nine Elms, as already mentioned, private sector investment will make us weathering these next 4 years much easier than many other authorities. It is a great honour to be elected by your peers to represent them in public office. It is an honour we have all been graced with, and one we should never forget, whatever our political differences, that our primary aim is to represent the people who put us here. On that point, I would like to mention my predecessor, Liz Stokes, who will be sorely missed, and the huge amount of work that she has provided for the people of West Putney. It is a very challenging legacy that I take on, but one that I'm thoroughly looking forward to. And I would commend this motion to the Council, and I support it wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
Councillor Field.
Mr Mayor, councillors, and my thanks to the voters of Nightingale Ward and councillors McDermott and Hart, who have been so supportive. It was my grandfather who would have been 136 today, his birthday, had he been around. He made his maiden speech in 1936. This 36 years, 36 seems to be popping up a lot. He made this speech in 1936 in the Commons and went on to make another 497 speeches, a further 73 in the House of Lords. I don't know whether Councillor Belton will be able to match that, but we shall see in time. He said, "Here's a place where many talk but few listen." He went on to say, "I shall note whether this is an observation of a cynic," which he wasn't. He was encouraged to note that when a new member rises to make a maiden speech, he is treated with fine courtesy and patience from every quarter. This is undoubtedly the case here. I have been made most welcome by so many in so many ways. The vision for a stronger and better Wandsworth, well, I've been looking at its successful past, with its sound historical foundations. The borough of Wandsworth has a fine heritage and needs to be protected and celebrated in a democratic and diplomatic way without stifling change. We must never forget our past. If we lose sight of historical fact, we do so at our peril. We have a duty to pass on our rich history to the next generation, especially to our young people, and to continue to inspire the multicultural of diverse peoples who have come and settled here. Let's tell them about the Wandsworth story, of its success and its growth. It is as a result of their valuable and varied contribution in society which has made our thriving borough what it is today. On Monday, the Daily Telegraph carried an article by Jonathan Ruffer, who said our ancient buildings and assets can lift people's spirits and transform society. Love of beauty is both powerful and democratic. It is no respecter of persons. We all know that large projects may have social impacts, with resultant pressures on people, buildings, infrastructure, potential business, employment, more housing and schools, the very fabric of social change from which all can benefit. However, it is important to get it right and attract inward investment. We must be sensitive to protect our heritage, particularly at the planning and consultation stage. In recent times, there has been democratic consultation, and changes and policies have resulted in a better, modern Wandsworth. We need to always be at the forefront, and I think we are. Its administration has led from the front with change in London and has been sensitive to the varied needs and requirements of its residents. A plea to you, Mr. Mayor and councillors. We need to utilise our business expertise in our trades and services and put our knowledge to help our young and give them confidence to get jobs and work experience. All of us have a responsibility to network and use our contacts to good effect to help them. I am, and I hope you can all join me. The iconic Battersea Power Station is a symbol of power and heritage. It's on our Wandsworth logo. It's in the very epicentre of a massive change, which we will see in our borough. Once the development is completed, we will celebrate an historic journey to fulfilment with pride, a partnership of understanding and vision, and there will be more exciting regeneration developments in the future. So, Mr. Mayor, besides 2014 being an important year for you personally, is a year of rich heritage when we need to remember the centenary of the First World War, a conflict in which local volunteers and battalions from Battersea and Wandsworth fought from beginning to end. The Council's crest, which by special permission was worn on the caps and lapels of Wandsworth's infantry battalion in the First World War. 70th anniversary of D-Day, the turning point in the Second World War, in which again our Clapham Junction-based volunteers fought bravely. We have heard of the Vikings sailing up the Wandle to the French Huguenots plying their trades and using the river water, as did the industrial mills, to Nelson, who learnt to fly fish on the River Wandle, and Thomas Hardy residing in Trinity Road. The John Archer story as a civil rights campaigner, this is much to celebrate. Wandsworth has thrived today. It has wonderful attractions, and there are many societies who are active and constantly remind us of our rich history. We have our own excellent council heritage service. We must
I wonder, Councillor Field, if you could draw your remarks to a close.
Certainly.
Thank you.
I'm very keen to encourage schools to play their part in learning about the past. It was my inspiration for the Heritage Award for Schools, with unstinting help from Councillor Dunn. We will be rolling it out this competition in September. It will be fun, inspirational education for all ages. Mr. Mayor, to sum up, with our initiatives and aspirational visions, we must not lose sight of what we have learned and experienced in the past when planning our future. Researched and right partnerships with sound financial management is essential for the benefit of the next generation.
I'm prepared to indulge the Deputy Mayor, but would you be kindly draw?
I knew you would. I knew you would be generous to me. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I'm very grateful to you. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
We Fursdown councillors are the most fortunate of all the councillors in this borough because the ward we represent has the greatest sense of community in Wandsworth. In case you doubt this, please bear with me. Each year, Fursdown hosts a pumpkin parade, a dog show, bat walks, Christmas market, wildflower walks, a May Day celebration with storytellers and maypole dancers, history walks, book groups, clean-up days for the common, medicinal plant walks, jazz concerts, choirs, a teddy bear's picnic, carol singing and flame throwing. Fursdown has the largest social network in Wandsworth, the biggest non-council event in the borough and a community gallery. Fursdown is home to an award-winning day centre for older people, one of a dwindling number of subsidised nurseries, an outstanding secondary school, and, of course, our very popular Labour MP. Schools aside, all of this is run by volunteers. But make no mistake, as the 65% of people who voted Labour attest in Fursdown, this is not the big society as hailed by Tories, who prefer the state withdraw and volunteers fill the gap. This is socialism. Having canvassed every door in my ward, I know the overwhelming majority who give up their time for free are Labour supporters. Thanks to them and others, Fursdown garnered the highest turnout in the borough. We 3 Fursdown councillors each won more votes than any Tory in this chamber. Fursdown's committed, dynamic and confident socialism is on the march. Labour councillors increased their numbers by 50%, taking seats in so-called safe Tory wards, which makes the complacency of the Tories' motion for debate this evening so shocking, if not ridiculous. Despite polling the worst results in a quarter of a century, Wandsworth's Tories wish us to debate a motion asserting Labour's policies were rejected. Tories have the audacity to claim that quality of life in this borough improves, the council offers the best possible support for vulnerable people, that this council generates prosperity, without mentioning those for whom that is not true. Are they not worthy of debate? In the last 14 months, 3,222 people have been fed by Wandsworth's food banks. Every day, parents in Wandsworth skip meals to feed their children, and people are forced to choose between paying the rent and eating. That's according to the Trussell Trust that runs Wandsworth's food banks. Sue Clark, a vicar and former consultant physician who runs Fursdown's food bank, says in the past year she has seen more men in tears in front of her than at any other time in her life. Food banks were not here 2 years ago. Food banks result directly from Tory changes to the benefit system, which hit the most vulnerable, those who the Tories in this debate simply wish to airbrush out. People like the man with MS referred to Sue's food bank by the Neuro Rehabilitation Centre at St George's. He'd missed his appointment at the job centre, had had his benefits suspended as a result, and could not afford to feed himself. Why? Because MS had so compromised his mobility and speech that he could no longer physically make his appointment, and he was struggling to make himself heard in a system that punishes non-attendees with hunger. Where does he figure in increased prosperity and quality of life? Who helps these hungry people, including 1,315 hungry children? Volunteers, none of whom, of course, saw a penny of the £3 million gifted by this Tory council in bonuses each year. We live in one of the richest boroughs, in one of the richest cities, in one of the richest countries, and people are relying on handouts from volunteers to feed their children. For the failure to understand the reality of what living in Wandsworth means, for the many hungry, impoverished and desperate families in the borough, I call on this chamber to reject this motion, written by the few, for the few, in what may yet become the dying throes of this Tory administration.
It's a little time since we've heard the word socialism in the chamber.
You'll hear it a lot more, Mr Mayor, let me assure you.
Councillor Peterkin.
Mr Mayor, thank you for inviting me to make my maiden speech. All I can say about the prospect of more mentions of socialism is it's so 20th century. Mr Mayor, I'm proud and thankful to be here representing West Hill Ward tonight. Some members on this side of the House know that my family has a long history in Wandsworth and indeed in West Hill, going back at least 100 years. before I came along. The last left in 1979. I'm told they're a long line of Labour voters, which just goes to show that every family has dark secrets. Mr. Mayor, let's just have a look at exactly what's been achieved by the officers of this council, by this council, but above all, by the citizens of this borough over the last 4 years. We still have one of the lowest council taxes in the country, and we have plans to keep it low. 94% of schools in the borough are good or outstanding, rated by Ofsted, and we have plans to further increase that number. We were the first borough to hit the 100% decent homes standard, and we're looking forward to 100 million more in investment in our council estates. Add to that we are the safest borough in inner London, and we're further looking at keeping antisocial nuisance drinkers off the streets. Who benefits from this? Councillor MacDonald told us that this is a borough for the rich. Councillor Anderson told us that this is a borough for the rich. I think she's confusing us with some of our high-charging Labour neighbours. Those for whom making ends meet is a struggle benefit from our low council tax, unlike in certain Labour boroughs. Southwark and Brent come to mind. Those who want to send their children to good local schools benefit from the work that's gone on to move 94% of those schools to good or outstanding, unlike certain neighbouring Labour boroughs, to pick two at random, Southwark and Brent. Those who live on our council estates are in decent homes and will benefit from 100 million more worth of investment, unlike in certain neighbouring Labour boroughs, to pick two at random, Southwark and Brent. The vulnerable, who need to know that they're being protected from the violent and dishonest, can rest assured that they are in the safest borough in inner London, and I suspect on that score we're better than Southwark and Brent as well. But what about the opposition? To whom did they outsource their strategic thinking in the run-up to the last election? Well, I can tell you, Mr. Mayor, the leader of Southwark, the ex-leader of Southwark, and the ex-chief executive of Brent. What a lack of ambition for our borough. Aside from being a fantastic cure for insomnia, the Independent Commission on Wandsworth Council Tax rewards close study. It kicks off with attempting to make a virtue of the fact that Labour's spendthrift instincts in local government will be restrained for the time being by a Conservative Department for Communities and Local Government. We know taxes are going up under Labour if they get in, because Harriet Harman told us so this lunchtime. It moves on to suggesting delinking officer remuneration from performance, and finishes up by suggesting that we build a shiny new council HQ. Just how out of touch are they? Mr. Mayor, to sum up, on the other side of the House there's a lack of vision for Wandsworth. On this side of the House there's a clear but not complacent vision for the next 4 years, and I commend the motion to the Chamber.
Mr. Mayor, on the point of order, I'd like to move a motion to adjourn the Council for 30 seconds. I'll tell you.
It's up to you.
As a mark of protest, this Council's failure to hear the voices of this borough's hidden carers. I was dismayed earlier at Councillor Tracy's decision to move an adjourned motion. She must have known that it would be a virtual certainty that therefore we wouldn't get to the third motion.
On a point of order, Mr. Mayor, my understanding with standing orders, which is why I gave notice, was that you have to give 45 minutes notice of an adjournment debate.
Thank you.
I believe Councillor Belton gave notice.
Is this the same adjournment motion, therefore?
Yeah, I'm seconding it and speaking on his behalf.
You don't need to take it.
He was deferring it.
No, I think I'd be grateful if you kindly sit down. Thank you.
Well, what about his adjournment?
Well, we gave him the opportunity and he chose not to take it, so it's quite baffling. You did not proceed. Well, we're running out of time, I'm afraid.
We're now in a debate, Councillor.
Well, let's hear it.
I'd like to finish the debate, first of all, and let's see how we're placed for time. Councillor Govindia. Well, I don't propose to accept it. No.
And on what grounds don't you propose to accept it?
Can we just... I'd like to hear Councillor Govinda finish the debate, and then we can see if time permits. Councillor Govinda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is mildly serious, because if we're not going to get the standing orders right at the beginning of the year, we're going to have this problem. OK, that's your ruling. Can I have a justification for that in writing, no doubt backed up by the Chief Executive tomorrow?
Delighted. Councillor Govinda.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, on a point of order, I do think it would be helpful if you could read out the paragraph on adjournment debates. I must admit, I personally had not understood the ruling which you've just made, but my memory is going, sadly, as I age.
If that's helpful, the motion that the council meeting do now adjourn, or a motion in the form that moved the conclusion of the speech of another member, or on the conclusion of any business, no amendment shall be allowed to this motion. Fairly clear.
So, move on to Council. I mean, review the time. Move on to Councillor Govinda. They will take it after Councillor Govinda.
We'll give you a full explanation, as I told you I would. Councillor Govinda, will you kindly conclude the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief, and really my job is to actually say that we have heard 8 good speeches, and if that is the continuing quality of debate we look forward to, then this chamber will have some interesting times ahead. I think I'm not going to bother in ranking each one of them, because they all were exceptional in their own ways. Just one particular one struck me was when Councillor Anderson asked the question of where is Bedford. Well, for many years I represented Nightingale Ward without actually hearing a single Nightingale. So the names of the wards are a kind of a mystery unto themselves and unto us, and I don't think one should dwell too much into it. I think I'm not sure whether Richard's ancestors' 493 speeches, obviously an impressive record. I look forward to hearing some of those, you reaching somewhere along those lines. But of course, as Deputy Mayor of the Borough, you will this year have the opportunity to tell the Wandsworth story to many, many people, and actually using the chain as almost a tool to take them through the history of Battersea in particular. So that will be a great opportunity for you, and I'm sure that the borough will be enriched, and your initiative is something that I really look forward to. Just in ending, I was travelling back from a meeting this evening, and travelling with somebody who had lived in Tooting 26 years ago and has just moved back into Tooting, and he used the word that Tooting has been transformed in those 26 years that he's been away. And I think in many ways colleagues on both sides have talked about their contribution to continuing that transformation in whichever way it is. But of course, the rest of the 4 years will show that which vision succeeds.
Mr. Mayor, on a point of order, I've done as you've asked. We've heard Councillor Govinda. Will you now hear my motion to adjourn the council?
I do understand your impatience. Will you listen for 1 minute? We are going to take the vote, and then afterwards we'll take the adjournment motion. Can you live with that? Please.
Well, no.
I said that's what I intend to do. So, let's move to the motion now before the council. Is that proposed by Councillor Hampton and seconded by Councillor Govinda, as set out in item 18 of the agenda, concerning a vision for a stronger and better Wandsworth. Please indicate by show of hands those in favour of the motion.
And those against?
And those against. The motion is carried 34 to 15.